Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. Today we have 4 brand new stories, starting with one about overly picky customers who didn't like the quality of the wine. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Wine snob gets it all wrong. I worked at a fairly nice steakhouse for a few months that looked a lot fancier than it really was. There was one older couple who came in and were immediately quite rude. It was quite a popular restaurant, especially during summer when I worked there, and most people would reserve beforehand. These two march in, and the lady immediately demands a table by the windows inside. By chance, there was a free table, and I escorted them there. Having been sitting for a few minutes, they impatiently call me over to order, and they both get a glass of wine to drink. I bring it to them and am quickly rushed back as the lady decides her wine tastes like cork. Even though I knew the bottle was a screw top, I decide to play along. I apologized profusely and immediately went to get them wine that was drinkable. I returned with the same bottle their wine was poured in, unscrew it, and pour them 2 new glasses at the table, told them I hoped this one tasted better, while the lady turned a dark shade of red. And our second story. Up to 4 days means up to 4 days. I work at a small shop that fixes computers for people. This woman came in on a Tuesday and asked us to fix her laptop. Sure, no problem. I took a brief look at it to assess what's likely at fault, probably a case of replacing the hard drive and reinstalling Windows, so I quoted her up to 4 working days to be completed, as we usually work on things in the order they come in. She agrees to this and did not pay for the fast service we offer, which would probably have been next day in this case. Anyway, come Thursday, she comes in expecting her laptop to be fixed. I tell her I'll check if it's been done yet. Having a look, I find that it's still on the shelf, but it's next in the queue to be looked at, so I tell her this. At this point, she goes effing ballistic, saying that she needs it fixed to do her self-employed job and that she cannot do work without it. I tell her if she wanted it done urgently, she should have brought it in on a fast service, but I can upgrade it right now and it'll be done either by the end of the day or tomorrow morning. She storms off and says she isn't paying anything extra. All right, not paying extra, I suppose. That means she wants it the standard speed then. I started working on it later that day, but then left it in a corner because I wanted it to be dry to take it outside and clean out the CPU fan. It was filthy. I timed it so that we notified her, and it was complete at about 30 minutes before closing on the 4th working day, Monday, complying with what was agreed, despite the laptop was basically completed around Friday lunchtime. She couldn't get in before we closed, what a shame, and then picked it up on Tuesday, a full week after she brought it in. I met my end of the agreement to the letter. Customers who don't complain and shout at me usually get it done faster than agreed. Had one recently where I'm supposed to quote him about 3 days, but as he was nice and we had a friendly chat for a while, I told him to come back in 30 minutes as it was a model I was very familiar with and knew I could do it there and then. And our third story. So you're the manager of my spare time now? I was employed at a small market radio station for many years a while back. I loved the actual work, but the people there were just terrible. Particularly the manager in this story. She spent 7 years pretending we were friends, working up from sales to sales manager and eventually station manager, and then one day she decided to make my job a completely miserable experience, holding station meetings without me, creating recording sessions without putting them on my schedule, ignoring my reports of tech issues so things never got fixed. It was ridiculous how little managing she actually did. Basically, there had been a buildup of her crap leading up to this story, and this was the first real time I put my foot down. Since we were a small staff and I was the employee with the most years, I had a lot of responsibilities. The easiest way of describing my job was I did everything except sell ads. Every day had the same main responsibilities, but minor changes kept each day different. Punch in at 8 a.m. and co-host the final hour of the morning show, answer phones and the door all day, record ads and clients, edit shows, do the afternoon broadcast 1 to 5 p.m., pre-record the evening news block to air after I leave for the day. One day, the morning show host decided we needed to talk about America's Got Talent. But by the time he had this great idea, auditions were already 3 shows in. I'd never watched the show before because I absolutely hated reality TV, but I thought, what could it hurt? and I went home that night to watch the Week 4 episode. While it was entertaining, it was also an overly padded waste of time. But I did my homework and did the show the next morning and hyped it up like it was the greatest thing ever. Next week, I forgot to watch. I go into work and the morning show host asks what I thought, and I panic for a second, telling him I didn't see it. Since I had about 20 minutes of morning news before I was live, I ran to my office and checked YouTube for a highlight reel, and there it was, an hour-long TV show whittled down to a 15-minute video. Perfect. When it was done, I moved to the broadcast studio and did a great recap of last night's episode. Even the host, who watched the entire show, thought I did a great job keeping up with him. 6th episode came around, and this time I remembered it was on, but since I knew NBC was going to post the highlights for me tomorrow, I opted to spend my free time on something that I actually wanted to do. Next morning, I go straight to the highlight reel and get caught up on every act that was important enough to talk about. Again, the show host thought I did a great job. But my manager didn't think it was good enough. She called me into her office to ask why I was purposely ignoring requests to watch the show. I asked her what difference does it make whether I watch the hour-long broadcast, full of commercials and long-winded filler to stretch the runtime, versus watching the highlight reel that has every high point and does the same job in 15 minutes. She said it makes a difference and wouldn't elaborate. She was always pulling that "I'm right and I don't have to tell you why" crap. She then pointed out that next week, when the judges began cutting acts and there was going to be episodes every Tuesday and Wednesday for the rest of the broadcast, and watching it was mandatory. "How long are these episodes?" I asked her. "They're an hour each." And that's when I decided to put an end to this bullcrap once and for all. So that's 2 hours of show prep each week. Do I mark that down on my timesheet as overtime, or am I expected to cut out at 3 p.m. on Friday so I don't go over my scheduled 40 hours? My manager's eyes bugged out like she never once expected me to demand payment for dictating how I spend my time outside the office. I just stood there waiting to see if I was going to be making extra money or getting an early start to the weekend. Suddenly, the 15-minute highlight reel during regular paid office hours was good enough. Funny how that works, huh? And our last story. Coworker takes my car for a test drive and doesn't return car or pay money. Back in 2003, I was 21 and bought my first, and last, I've learned a lot since my youth, brand new car right off the lot. Meanwhile, I still had my first used car, a 1988 Chevy Blazer. I had a coworker who was about 15 years older than me who needed a car. We'd gotten along really well up until this point, and she'd just had a baby and was a single mom. I wanted to help her out, so I told her about my Blazer, and she said she wanted to come take it for a test drive. I told her my garage code because I knew I wasn't going to be home. She was supposed to come by and take it for a drive, but the next day I discovered it was gone altogether. When I asked her why she had the car, she said she had taken it to a mechanic and he found all of these repairs that needed to be done, and she had no idea it would need this much work before blah blah blah. On top of that, she had told him to go ahead and just start the work before she paid a dime to me. This negotiation tactic floored me. I don't remember what price I told her, but I think we negotiated somewhere around $400 from $600. At this point, I was definitely feeling taken advantage of, but I was young, so I was just trying to get this over with. So like 2 weeks go by, still no payment. She would tell me she was struggling with bills and would pay me soon. Finally, I told her she had to pay me by the 1st of the month. I had to have the money by then, no exceptions. The 1st rolls around and she calls me to say she wouldn't be paying me. Would I be open to payments if I held on to the title? At this point, I was done doing her favors and said no. I needed the car back if she couldn't pay for it. She responded like any CB with threats, telling me she was going to take me to court because she'd already put a bunch of money into the car. As I recall, the call did not end well, and she hung up on me. So I went to the police station, I told them what happened, and an officer followed me in my car to her apartment to confront her and get the keys. She had the only copy. Like I said, I was young and learned a good lesson from this. Well, she wasn't home, but the Blazer was parked outside. The cop called a tow truck, and I wrote a check for $80, and the car was towed, where I promptly locked it in the garage until I could sell it to someone else. Luckily, I had a mechanic friend who took apart the steering column and used his connection to get me a key made at a nearby dealership. Pretty much all hell broke loose after this. She called me, left harassing messages on my phone. She accused me of stealing and being a bad friend. She even had her mother call me, whom I argued with on the phone. I kept saying that she could have the car if she paid for it. Her mother kept yelling, "But she doesn't have the money." Like I said, my coworker was like 35 years old, so to have her mother arguing with me was pretty surreal. Luckily, she got fired after this incident, and I sold the car. Now, present day, I would have never allowed anyone to test drive my vehicle without me being present, let alone take it into their possession. Lesson learned. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.